the son of the sun god. You are standing at the edge of the Nile, the golden river that carries the heartbeat of Egypt. Through deserts of endless sand, the air hums with the sound of life oxen in the fields, boats gliding over calm waters, priests chanting in distant temples. It is the 14th century before our era, and Egypt is the center of the known world. Here the gods number in the thousands, and every rock, tree, and ripple of water holds divine presence. Yet somewhere deep within the royal palace of Thebes, a young prince watches the sun rise and feels that there should be only one. His name is Amenhotep, the fourth of that name, a prince of the 18th dynasty, born to Pharaoh Amenhotep III, whose reign is an age of prosperity and power. The empire stretches from the sands of Nubia to the cedar forests of Lebanon. Tribute flows in from distant lands, gold from Kush, silver from Syria, horses, ivory, lapis lazuli. Egypt shines like no other civilization. Yet beneath the glitter of temples and palaces, the air is heavy with something else, the dominance of the priests of Amun, the hidden god of Thebes. You can almost hear their prayers echo from Karnak's colossal halls, endless offerings to the invisible deity, whose priests have become as mighty as kings. In Thebes, Amun is everywhere his name, in every blessing his priests controlling vast lands, his temple coffers richer than the royal treasury. The pharaoh rules Egypt, yes, but the priests of Amun whisper that they rule the pharaoh. Into this sacred world young Amenhotep is born. He grows up surrounded by splendor, walls painted with golden lilies, tutors who recite the wisdom of Thoth, servants who bow so low their foreheads touch the floor. And yet, even as a child, he seems different. When other princes chase across palace courtyards with toy chariots, he wanders the gardens alone. His eyes follow the path of the sunlight through the papyrus reeds. His attendants whispered that he speaks softly to the air, as if listening to something beyond the human ear. His father, the great Amenhotep III, the dazzling sun, disk of all lands, is a god-king of perfection, his reign filled with celebrations, art and peace. The boy grows up in his shadow, learning the rituals of the old gods, but never quite believing them. While priests burn incense to Amun, Amenhotep's eyes drift toward the windows, toward the brilliant light, flooding through them the sun itself. He begins to ask questions that unsettle his tutors. Why must there be so many gods, he wonders aloud. Is not the sun the one who gives life to all things? Is it not enough? The older priests grow nervous. To question the pantheon is to question the order of creation itself. But the boy's curiosity cannot be silenced. He watches the Aten, the visible disk of the sun, rising and falling each day, unchanging, eternal, giving light to both pharaoh and peasant alike. To him this seems not just natural, but divine. In the evenings, when the city glows in the red haze of sunset, the young prince sits by the water gardens and dreams of a world washed clean of darkness and deceit, a world where one radiant God shines over all people, bringing unity instead of division. But he says nothing more, for he is not yet Pharaoh. Time moves gently along the Nile as it always has. Festivals bloom and fade. The priests of Amun continue their processions, their faces painted with gold, their voices echoing like thunder in the sacred halls. The old king grows older. Statues of Amenhotep III rise across the land, vast stone faces smiling upon eternity, while the young prince lingers in the shadows, his mind aflame with quiet conviction. There is a story whispered by later generations that the young Amenhotep once visited the temple of Heliopolis city of the sun god Ra. There, among the columns that caught the dawn, he felt something stir within him, a revelation, a certainty that all gods were reflections of a single light. The priest, sensing his restlessness, tried to drown him in ritual, but the seed of doubt had taken root. His mother, Queen Tia, is perhaps the only one who understands him. She is wise, politically sharp, and foreign-born. Her own father was a powerful noble of non-royal blood. She teaches her son that a pharaoh's duty is not only to rule, but to see what others cannot. And so as Amenhotep IV grows, so too does the strange, quiet conviction in his heart. He studies the sacred texts and the old hymns, but reads them differently, seeking not many voices, but one. When he offers to the gods, he lifts his eyes not to the statues of Amun or Osiris, but to the light above them. The servants notice. So do the priests. And then one night, as he walks alone on a terrace overlooking the sleeping city, he witnesses something that will haunt him forever. The moon drifts across the sky, covering part of the sun in an eerie shadow, a solar eclipse. The land darkens, the birds fall silent, the world seems to hold its breath, and then the shadow passes, and the sun blazes forth once more, triumphant, pure, unstoppable. He falls to his knees, trembling. To him it is no mere celestial event, but a message. The light had vanished and returned stronger than before. He whispers the name Aten for the first time, feeling it roll across his tongue like sunlight itself. From that moment, his destiny seemed set. He will rise and the gods of Egypt will tremble. The boy who loved the sun will one day make it the only god Egypt may worship. But for now, in the cool hush of Thebes, the prince keeps his revelation secret, locked within a heart already divided between duty and destiny. Far beyond the Nile keeps flowing, slow, eternal, and unknowing of the storm that is coming. The age of Amun and the power of Thebes. Thebes lies like a jewel beside the river, its twin cities stretched across both banks of the Nile, the city of the living on the east and the city of the dead upon the west. From above it gleams beneath the Egyptian sun, its temples and palaces glittering like sand-polished gold. It is here that the air hums, not only with the heat of the desert, but with the power of Amun, the hidden god, lord of creation and protector of kings. You hear the chanting begin before dawn, 1,000 voices rising from the temple of Karnak, a forest of colossal columns and sacred lakes, its walls covered with hieroglyphs that speak of divine order and eternal rule. The priests of Amun move through its shadowed halls in silence, their shaved heads gleaming with oil, their robes of fine white linen rustling softly as they prepare offerings of bread, incense, and myrrh. The first light of morning touches the temple's great pylon gate, and as the sun spills over the horizon, the priests lift their hands toward it, murmuring the ancient words of power, Amun-Re, king of the gods, hidden one father of the world, giver of life. This is Egypt at its height, rich, confident, and deeply religious. But beneath the calm order of its rituals lies a structure of power that rivals even the throne itself. The Amun priesthood, based here in Thebes, has grown vast and wealthy over generations. They own land as far as the delta, control laborers, herds, and granaries, and collect offerings from millions. Their influence stretches into every corner of Egypt's life, in politics, in commerce, even in war. Pharaohs once commanded the loyalty of the temples, but now the balance has shifted. The temple of Amun holds its own army of scribes, its own treasuries, its own spies. Some whisper that the god's priests are the true rulers of Egypt, and that the Pharaoh himself must bow to their will. It is within this world that Amenhotep IV, the future Akhenaten, comes of age. Each day he watches the ceremonies that glorify Amun. He sees the long lines of offerings carried through the streets, the people prostrating themselves before images they cannot question, and as he looks upon the towering statues of the god, he wonders again why divinity must hide behind stone and shadow. His father Amenhotep III understands power better than faith. He knows that to rule Egypt is to balance the mortal and divine. So he honors Amun lavishly, building temples, endowing priests, and expanding the festivals of Opet, where the god's sacred bark is carried from Karnak to Luxor amid crowds of cheering worshippers. It is spectacle and politics intertwined. Yet the young prince watches from behind the gold-framed curtains of the palace, his thoughts drifting elsewhere. The river shimmers in the heat, the sky blazes with perfect clarity, and in that light he feels a truth the temples seem to obscure. Amun is called the Hidden One, but the Aten, the shining disk of the sun, hides nothing. Its warmth touches king and commoner alike. The more he studies the rituals, the more hollow they seem. The endless procession of offerings, the repetition of chants, the priests murmuring secrets to a god concealed within darkness, all of it begins to feel distant, impersonal, almost empty. And yet he cannot speak, not yet. The Pharaoh's son must learn silence. Beyond the temples, Egypt thrives. The empire's borders are secure trade. Caravans carry treasures from Nubia, Crete, and Byblos. In Thebes, workers carve colossal statues for the king's mortuary temple. At Com el Hetan, the colossi of Memnon, towering guardians meant to endure forever. The hum of artisans and scribes fills the air. The city glows with confidence, but prosperity has its shadows. The common people labor under the weight of temple taxes. Farmers are forced to donate grain to the priests. Merchants complain quietly that all profit flows upward to the temples and the throne. Even foreign envoys visiting the court note that Egypt's gods seem richer than its people. In this golden cage of faith and power, Amenhotep IV grows more withdrawn. He spends hours alone, sketching strange designs of the sun's rays, ending in open hands, touching faces, touching hearts. When others pray to Osiris for the dead, he prays to the living sun. His mother, Queen Tia, sees his unrest. She has long been her husband's closest advisor, unafraid of the priests and their power. It is said that she too mistrusts the excesses of Amun's temple. Tia encourages her son's curiosity, but warns him quietly, "A pharaoh may hold the throne of Egypt, but the priests hold its soul." The warning echoes in his heart. He knows that when he becomes king, he will not inherit only a crown, but also the endless struggle between light and shadow, between the power of the temples and the truth he feels within. At times, you can almost see him standing on the palace terrace, gazing across the Nile toward the West Bank, where the tombs of kings glow under the fading sun. The desert burns red, and the Aten, the visible sun, seems to descend not into death, but into rest. And he wonders, perhaps the sun does not die, perhaps it lives on unseen only to rise again. That thought fills him with quiet strength. A hidden god may demand fear, but the sun gives life freely. Could a pharaoh not rule by the light of such a god that shines openly, needing no temple walls, no priests to speak in his name. He dreams of it often, a world where men and women lift their eyes to the same sky where all life worships the same light. But to dream of changing Egypt's gods is to dream of shaking its very foundation. Even the whisper of such an idea would mean blasphemy, rebellion against the cosmic order known as the balance between heaven and earth. Pharaohs had always been the guardians of that balance. None had dared to challenge it. Not yet. The city of Thebes glows in the evening light, its temple pylons stretching like mountains against the horizon. The hymns to Amun roll through the air like waves, ancient, endless, secure. The priests bow before their hidden god. The people obey, and high in his chamber the young prince closes his eyes. The last rays of the Aten spill through the carved shutters and fall across his face. He whispers softly enough that no one else can hear, one God, one light, one truth. The words fade into the stillness unnoticed by the world, but in that quiet moment the seed of revolution begins to stir, a seed that will one day burn brighter than the sun itself. The restless Heir. The palace of Thebes rises like a vision of eternity, its walls painted in deep blues and golds, its floors polished smooth by generations of royal feet. Perfumed air drifts through open courtyards carrying the scent of lotus and myrrh. In its chambers, musicians play soft melodies on harps and flutes, and dancers move like ripples of sunlight across the floor. To most who see it, this is paradise, the center of the Egyptian world. But to Amenhotep IV it feels like a prison made of gold. He walks its halls as a man caught between two worlds, one of ancient gods and rigid ritual, the other of new and unshaped visions that haunt his waking mind. From childhood he has obeyed his tutors, bowed before the statues, and spoken the prayers that every pharaoh's son must learn. Yet each word feels heavier now, as if the air itself resists them. At times he escapes the palace to walk among the gardens that line the Nile. There, surrounded by the hum of insects and the soft rush of water, he feels free. He kneels by the reeds and lifts his eyes to the blazing sun, the Aten, the radiant disk that burns above all things. He watches its rays reach out, touching the surface of the river, the flowers, his own skin. In that moment he senses a presence, not a god in the shape of a man or an animal, but something vast and alive, something that cannot be caged in stone. And yet within him doubt still whispers. Could it truly be that all the gods of Egypt, Ra, Osiris, Isis, Amun, and the countless others are but reflections of this one light? Or is he merely seeing what he wishes to see, rebelling against the world into which he was born? At night, sleep brings no peace. Dreams come instead, strange, vivid visions that leave him trembling. In them he stands in a city bathed in white stone, open to the sky, with no idols, no temples, only sunlight cascading through vast courts. The people raise their arms to the sun, and he stands among them not as a servant of Amun, but as something else, something chosen. He awakes, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding the dream's brilliance, still burning behind his eyes. He confides in no one but his mother, Queen Tai. She listens quietly, her face calm, but her eyes searching. The gods choose their vessels carefully, she says. But beware, my son, the world is not kind to those who see what others refuse to see. Still the visions continue. He feels them even in waking hours, the pull of something divine, unseen yet irresistible. The priests of Amun call it blasphemy. The young prince calls it truth. Outside the palace walls, Egypt hums with wealth and ceremony. Each month brings new festivals, new processions. The statues of Amun and Osiris are carried through the streets, veiled in gold and incense, followed by crowds who chant prayers older than memory. To the people, this is eternity Egypt, as it has always been and always will be. But to Amenhotep IV, the sight fills him with unease. The gods, he thinks, demand too much. They consume life instead of giving it. He begins to avoid the grand ceremonies, claiming illness or retreat. When he must attend, his expression remains distant, his eyes fixed not on the idols, but on the sky above them. The priests notice. They whisper in corridors, their faces tight with disapproval. A prince who does not revere the gods threatens the very foundation of Ma'at, the balance of the world. Even his father Amenhotep III grows concerned. The old king, though tolerant, senses the change in his son. You think too deeply, he warns one evening over a banquet heavy with roasted duck and pomegranate wine. The gods are many, and so they have always been. It is not for us to question them. Our duty is to maintain harmony, to keep the world as it was given to us. Amenhotep IV bows respectfully, but in his heart he cannot agree. He feels a stirring, the first breath of rebellion. Harmony, he thinks, is not peace when built on falsehood. In the years that follow, the tension between father and son grows quietly like a desert wind before a storm. The young prince spends more time alone, commissioning small shrines, not to Amun or Osiris, but to the Aten discreetly, almost in secret. These are not temples of stone, but open spaces where the sunlight itself is worshipped. Servants whisper that the prince greets the dawn each morning with his arms lifted high, singing softly to the rising disk. The songs he composes are unlike the hymns of old Egypt. They speak not of gods with faces and tempers, but of the light that sustains all things, the warmth that causes the fields to bloom, the radiance that gives life to both man and beast. His words are gentle, filled with awe rather than fear. And yet with every sunrise the distance between him and Thebes grows wider. The old world cannot accept such simplicity. The power of Amun is vast, woven into the very heart of the kingdom. The priests control not only temples, but armies, gold, and belief itself. To deny Amun is to deny Egypt, but the prince is restless. He walks the palace gardens at dusk, watching the fading glow of the Aten sink beyond the horizon. Thebes glitters in the half-light, a city of monuments and shadows. He thinks of the dreams that haunt him, a new city, a new faith, a new beginning. Could it be more than vision? Could it be destiny? As he stands there, the evening breeze carries the sound of distant chanting from Karnak, the priests of Amun offering their nightly prayers. Their voices rise like a tide, deep and resonant, commanding the ears of men and gods alike. And yet, over that thunder of tradition, Amenhotep hears something else, the quiet, steady rhythm of his own heart, pulsing in time with the fading light. He whispers the words again, the same that once crossed his lips as a boy: one God, one light, one truth. The sun has set, but in his eyes it still burns, a reflection of something greater than any temple can hold. Thebes does not yet know it, but the world is already beginning to change. The restless heir of Egypt stands at the edge of a revolution that will turn gods into dust and reshape eternity itself. The wind moves softly through the palms, and the Nile flows on indifferent and eternal, as if it already knows that the light will soon have a new name. The coronation of a dreamer. The sun rises over Thebes like a benediction, spilling gold upon the rooftops, the river, the temple pylons. It is a morning meant for eternity, the kind that poets would later claim was touched by the gods themselves. Trumpets echo through the city. Priests chant hymns older than memory. From every corner of Egypt, nobles, generals, and ambassadors have gathered to witness a sacred transformation, the coronation of Pharaoh Amenhotep IV, son of the sun, lord of the two lands. The old Pharaoh Amenhotep III is gone. His reign, long prosperous and radiant, has ended in silence. The city mourns, though even in mourning Egypt moves with precision, for kings may die, but kingship does not. The embalmed body of the old ruler rests within its tomb on the western shore, waiting for eternity. And in the east his son prepares to take the double crown, to join the unbroken line of rulers, stretching back to Nama, uniting Upper and Lower Egypt. Inside the palace, the young pharaoh-to-be stands before a polished copper mirror. Servants anoint him with oils scented with lotus and frankincense. His eyes, narrow, thoughtful, and inward-looking, stare not at his reflection, but at the window where the dawn light creeps across the floor. He has seen this day in dreams for years, yet the weight of it feels heavier than gold. He knows what is expected of him: to praise Amun, to lead the great festivals, to preserve Ma'at, the divine balance of the world. But somewhere beneath the ceremony, beneath the incense and the trumpets, another voice whispers to him, softer, older, and truer, the voice of the Aten. Outside, the sacred bark of Amun waits at the gates of the temple, ready to bless the new pharaoh. The priests chant Amun-Re, hidden of form, who gives life to the king. The coronation procession begins. You can imagine the splendor of it, the pharaoh riding in a golden chariot, wheels flashing in the sun, surrounded by banners and fan-bearers. The crowds line the streets, crying out his names, the perfect God, Lord of truth, he who appears in glory. Musicians play sistrums and drums. Dancers whirl through the dust. But to Amenhotep IV, the joy feels hollow. The chants to Amun fill his ears like waves against stone. His gaze keeps drifting upward past the temple walls to the bright orb of the sun blazing overhead. He feels the heat on his skin, the light in his eyes. It is as if the Aten itself watches him silently. At the temple of Karnak, the climax of the ceremony begins. The priests, adorned in golden white, led the new pharaoh to the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies, where the statue of Amun rests behind thick curtains. No common eyes may look upon it. Even kings may only glimpse it briefly. They recite the words of dedication, placing the crook and flail in his hands, symbols of divine authority. One priest steps forward, anointing him again and proclaiming, "You are the image of Amun upon earth, his son in flesh, his chosen ruler." For a long moment there is silence. The air feels heavy. The smell of incense fills the lungs. The pharaoh kneels as tradition demands, and the curtains before the statue are drawn aside, revealing the hidden god. But when Amenhotep IV lifts his eyes, he feels nothing. No awe, no divine presence, no surge of power, only the suffocating darkness of the enclosed chamber, the dust, the stale air, the lifeless stone. And in that silence he understands. The God who is hidden has nothing to reveal. Truth, he thinks, should not dwell in shadow. the divine should shine where all can see. He says nothing, but inside him a resolve hardens like cooling metal. When he rises and exits the temple, the light blinds him, the raw, brilliant radiance of the Aten above. His heart quickens. It is as if he has passed through illusion and emerged into truth. The crowd roars his name, but his eyes remain on the sun. The priests of Amun smile in ritual approval, but they do not see that something profound has just shifted, something that will one day shatter their world. Later that night, the new pharaoh stands on the palace balcony overlooking Thebes. The city glows below, alive with torches and song. He can hear the people celebrating, praising Amun, blessing his reign. But he speaks quietly to the empty sky. The light that gives life to all things, he whispers. It shines on Egypt and the lands beyond. It hides nothing. It needs no temple. He closes his eyes, feeling the faint warmth still lingering from the sunset. In his mind he sees not the face of Amun, but the perfect circle of the Aten, the god that gives without asking, that creates without cruelty. In the days that follow Amenhotep, IV begins his reign as custom demands. He honors Amun, publicly performs the festivals, consults the oracles, but privately his thoughts turn again and again to the Aten. He orders new shrines, built small open-air sanctuaries that face the sun directly with no roof to block its light. He commissions new hymns not to the hidden gods, but to the living sun. At first, few notice. Egypt is vast, and kings often favor different gods, but those who serve close to the throne begin to sense the change. The pharaoh spends hours in solitude at sunrise offering prayers to the Aten. He begins to wear a symbol, the sun disk with rays ending in tiny hands around his neck. Even the art of the palace begins to shift. Painters and sculptors are told to depict life as it truly is, not in rigid perfection, but in living movement. Scenes of the royal family bathed in sunlight appear on the walls, gentle and human. The old ideals of divine distance begin to soften. And in the heart of Thebes, the priests of Amun take notice. Their smiles at the coronation fade into quiet unease. Their spies whisper of the pharaoh's strange new prayers, his disregard for ceremony, his obsession with the sun. The word heretic is not yet spoken aloud, but it hovers in the air like heat before a storm. For now, Egypt celebrates its new king, the dreamer who walks in sunlight. But the seeds of division are already sprouting beneath the surface. A pharaoh who listens not to the gods of his fathers, but to the call of his own heart, cannot remain at peace for long. And as the nights grow shorter and the heat more fierce, the light of Aten grows stronger, demanding to be seen, demanding to be worshipped. The dreamer has been crowned. Soon the world will feel the fire of his dream. The rise of Aten, a new light dawns. The dawn breaks over Thebes not in silence, but in song. From the great courtyards of Karnak to the crowded streets of the city, voices rise to greet the morning, the hymns to Amun, the hidden god, as they have for centuries. Yet, in the royal palace, the new Pharaoh Amenhotep IV stands alone on his terrace and greets a different sun. He stretches out his arms to the sky. The first rays spill over the horizon, warm against his skin, and he feels the energy of life itself. To him, the Aten, the shining disk of the sun, is no mere symbol. It is life incarnate. He closes his eyes and whispers softly, "You are the one who rises in brilliance, the one who brings the world from darkness. All eyes behold you, for you hide in no place." Below him the city stirs to its routines. Merchants open stalls. Priests prepare offerings. Scribes begin their work. But within the palace walls a quiet revolution has already begun. The pharaoh no longer begins his day with the rites of Amun. Instead, he orders new morning rituals dedicated to the Aten. Gone are the incense-smoked chambers and dark inner sanctuaries. The Aten's worship is held in open courtyards under the full blaze of the sun. The priests who serve him raise no idols, for the Aten cannot be captured in stone or painted on a wall. The sun itself is the only image permitted its rays ending in hands, bestowing the Ankh, the breath of life, upon all creation. At first the change seems harmless, a personal devotion of a contemplative king, but soon the ripples spread. The pharaoh commands that hymns be written to this new god, and so the court poets, guided by his hand, compose verses unlike any Egypt has ever heard. You are the living Aten who gives life to all. All lands, all peoples, their tongues differ, but their lives are nourished by your light. It is no longer the hymn of one nation or one god among many. It is a declaration of universality that the Aten shines upon the Syrian, the Nubian, the Libyan, and the Egyptian alike. To the pharaoh, this revelation is not blasphemy but beauty. To the priests of Amun, it is something else entirely. They watch as the pharaoh redirects offerings meant for their temples toward new shrines of the Aten. They whisper as he cancels certain rituals, as he speaks of the Aten in public, with a passion usually reserved for the gods of Thebes. They sense a shift in power, one more profound than any rebellion of soldiers or nobles. For in Egypt, faith is authority, and whoever commands the gods commands the world. The first great act of defiance comes quietly. In the 5th year of his reign, the pharaoh orders the construction of a vast temple to the Aten in Thebes itself, Aten, the sun found in the Aten. Unlike the shadowed sanctuaries of Amun, this new temple is open to the sky, its courtyards wide and radiant, its altars bare to the sunlight. The walls bear no images of hidden gods, only the glowing disk and its outstretched rays. When the priests of Amun see it rising just beyond the walls of Karnak, they understand what it means. The young king is no longer a mere reformer, he is a challenger, one who dares to place a new god beside and perhaps above their own. Within the palace, Amenhotep IV grows bolder. He begins to rewrite the language of kingship itself. In his inscriptions, he is no longer merely the beloved of Amun, but beloved of Aten. He takes to wearing robes of pure white, symbolic of the sun's purity, and surrounds himself with artists and thinkers who share his vision of a simpler, truer devotion. The art of his reign changes as well. The old stiff forms of Egyptian reliefs, straight formal divine, give way to curves and motion. The pharaoh is shown not as a distant god-king, but as a living man, his body elongated, his lips soft, his face serene and thoughtful. In these new scenes, he is often depicted beneath the rays of the Aten, his family gathered beside him, the sunlight kissing their faces. It is a gentle revolution, but one that cuts to the heart of Egypt's identity. Beyond the palace walls, the whispers grow louder. Some say the pharaoh has lost his mind, bewitched by visions. Others say he is blessed, a prophet chosen by the Aten himself. The common people continue to pray to Amun, Osiris, and Isis, but their loyalty wavers. For if the pharaoh no longer honors the old gods, will they still protect the land? Among the elite, lines are drawn. Those who serve in the temple of Amun feel their influence slipping away. Those who flatter the Pharaoh find favor, new lands, new wealth, new positions. The court begins to divide like a river branching in the delta, each stream flowing in its own direction. And yet for all the tension, the Pharaoh seems serene. His writings speak of joy of light, of life renewed. To him the Aten is not a jealous god, but a universal one whose warmth belongs to all. Still beneath the serenity lies danger. The priests of Amun have ruled through faith for centuries, and they will not yield easily. They begin to resist, quietly delaying shipments of offerings, withholding labor, spreading rumors of divine displeasure. When the Nile floods less generously one year, they murmur that Amun is angry that the Aten has no power over the river. But Amenhotep IV does not bend. Instead, he dreams of something greater, a world where no priest controls the word of God, where no temple hides truth in shadow. A world washed clean by sunlight. In private, he speaks of building a new city, one devoted entirely to the Aten, untouched by the corruption of Thebes and the grasp of Amun's priests. A city where the light will never be hidden and where he can begin again. He stands at his window one morning, watching the sun rise over the desert cliffs, the sand igniting into gold. A new dawn, he whispers, a new world. The Aten burns higher in the sky, its rays like fingers reaching down to touch the earth. And in that moment, the Pharaoh makes his decision. The age of Amun is ending. The age of Aten is about to begin. The rebellion of the god. Thebes, city of 100 gates, city of gods, begins to tremble, not from earthquake or flood, but from faith itself. A quiet unease spreads through its streets like wind through the reeds. The Pharaoh's new devotion to the Aten has become impossible to ignore. The open-air temple shines in the heart of the city, its walls dazzling in sunlight, its altars bare of idols. No shadows dwell there. And to the priests of Amun, that is precisely the problem. For generations, Thebes has been the home of Egypt's most powerful god, Amun, the hidden one. His priests command immense wealth, their temples filled with gold, their granaries overflowing. Their word is law in every corner of the land. But now that order is crumbling. Every offering given to the Aten is an offering lost to Amun. Every hymn sung to the sun disk is a heresy, whispered against the old gods. You can almost imagine the priests gathered deep within Karnak's darkened halls, their faces lit by the flicker of oil lamps, their voices low and urgent. The Pharaoh desecrates the name of Amun, one says. He builds new temples in his own image. He calls upon a god that has no face, no form, no lineage. This is madness. But another voice, older and calmer, replies, madness perhaps, or revelation. Pharaohs have been gods before, yet never one who sought to unmake the others. Outside, the people are torn between devotion and fear. To question the Pharaoh is blasphemy, but to abandon the gods is disaster. The farmers still raise prayers to Osiris for the crops to Hapi, for the flood to Hathor, for love and fertility. These gods have comforted Egypt for 2,000 years. Can one man truly erase them? And yet the Pharaoh's will is absolute. From the palace comes a royal decree. The images of the Aten shall appear beside his name on all monuments, all inscriptions. No god but the Aten shall stand above the king, and wherever the Aten's light shines, the name of Amun shall be erased. Scribes across Thebes take up their chisels, scratching out the name of the hidden god from temple walls. You can hear the sound, a sharp, deliberate scraping of stone echoing through the corridors of eternity. The very act feels like rebellion against the divine order. Some workers refuse, some weep as they obey, but none dare disobey the living Pharaoh. Soon the damage is done. On the sacred pylons of Karnak, where once Amun's name gleamed in gold leaf, now there is only silence, empty space, where the word of a god once lived. The priests are furious. They see not reform but blasphemy. They remember the old laws that Pharaoh rules only with divine sanction, that he is the son of Amun, not his equal. But now Amenhotep IV calls himself something different, the living spirit of the Aten. The line between God and king begins to blur. He walks among his followers with a serenity that unnerves even his allies. His eyes seem always fixed on the horizon, as if seeing something others cannot. He speaks of the Aten not with fear, but with joy of a god that lives not in statues, but in the living world, in every breath and heartbeat. All life is born in the light, he tells them, and in the light all are equal. His words spread through the city like wildfire. To the common people it is a strange but beautiful idea that the divine lives in sunlight, not in temples. But to the priesthood it is heresy of the highest order. They meet in secret plotting resistance. They send messages to the provincial governors, to generals loyal to the old faith, warning that the Pharaoh's heresy threatens Mayat, the sacred balance of heaven and earth. If the old gods are angered, they say the Nile will fail, the crops will die, Egypt will starve. And soon strange signs do appear. One summer, the flood waters rise late. The fields dry, the harvest fails. The priests proclaim that Amun's wrath has fallen upon the land. The people whisper in fear. Yet in the palace the Pharaoh remains unmoved. He tells them the world is not punished, only changing. The old gods, he says, cling to darkness. But the light cannot be undone. Still there are moments when even he feels the weight of what he has begun. At night he walks alone through the empty courtyards of his temple, the moonlight cold upon the stone. The city sleeps, but he cannot. He thinks of the faces of his ancestors carved upon tomb walls of the long, unbroken line of kings who served Amun faithfully. Has he betrayed them, or has he seen what they could not? His Queen Nefertiti watches him with quiet devotion. She too has begun to worship the Aten with the same radiant faith. Together they perform the new dawn rituals, offering flowers and food to the sun as it rises. Their daughters stand beside them, tiny figures raising their hands to the sky. In those moments, surrounded by the people he loves, the Pharaoh feels certain that this new path is not madness but destiny. But outside the palace, Egypt is no longer certain of anything. The priests whisper sedition. The people mutter about famine. The soldiers, loyal but superstitious, wonder whether the gods will abandon them in battle. And so the Pharaoh makes a decision that will change Egypt forever. If Thebes will not embrace the Aten, then he will leave Thebes behind. He will build a new city, one untouched by Amun's shadow, one devoted solely to the living sun. It will be a city of light, carved from the desert, where the horizon itself will bear the Aten's name. He calls it Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. In his mind he already sees it, white walls rising from the sands, palaces open to the sky, temples without roofs, where sunlight floods every corner. A city where God and king will dwell together, not in shadow but in brilliance. The priests of Amun hear the news and fall silent. To move the court from Thebes is to abandon them, to cut them off from power. They know what it means: exile, ruin, perhaps even extinction. The Pharaoh has chosen his path, and there is no turning back. In the months that follow, preparations begin. Architects draw plans, workers are summoned, caravans of stone, wood, and grain stretch into the desert. The dream of the Aten takes form beneath the endless sky, and as the foundations of Akhetaten rise, the old gods of Thebes fade a little further into shadow. A rebellion has begun, not of armies, but of belief, and the light, once gentle, now burns. The birth of a new world, Akhetaten. The desert stretches before you, endless, shimmering, untouched. The sun beats down upon the limestone cliffs, and the sands glow with a brilliance that seems almost divine. It is here, far from the lush fields of the Nile and the towering temples of Thebes, that Pharaoh Amenhotep IV stands, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His hand rises to shade his face, and he smiles. This, he says softly, is where the Aten shall rise for all eternity. Around him, the officials of the court glance at one another uncertainly. They see only barren land, dry, lifeless, scorched by heat. But to the Pharaoh it is holy ground. In his dreams he has seen this very place bathed in light, the sun cresting perfectly between the cliffs, as if heaven itself bows to the earth. Here, he declares, will stand his new city, Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. The moment feels sacred. The priests of Amun, far away in Thebes, do not yet know it, but the world is shifting beneath their feet. For the Pharaoh is no longer merely building a new capital, he is birthing a new reality. Under his command, thousands of workers arrive: stonemasons, carpenters, artists, and laborers from every corner of Egypt. They come with oxen and tools, dragging limestone from nearby quarries. The desert trembles with their effort. From dawn to dusk, hammers ring against stone. Slowly from the emptiness, a vision begins to take form. The city rises in lines of white and ochre, its buildings open and sun-drenched. Unlike the dark enclosed temples of the old gods, Akhetaten's temples are vast and roofless courts open to the heavens where the sunlight pours unbroken. Altars are placed directly beneath the sky. There are no statues of gods, no hidden sanctuaries, no mystery behind stone walls. For the Aten, the visible sun has nothing to hide. Each morning, the Pharaoh rides out in his chariot to watch the city's progress. He wears simple linen robes, his skin bronzed by the sun. The workers stop their labor to bow as he passes, and he greets them not as a distant deity, but as a father would his children. They have never seen a pharaoh so human, so close. In his presence, the rigid solemnity of the old court fades into something lighter, warmer, almost joyful, and beside him rides his Queen Nefertiti, radiant as the dawn. Her face, carved later by artists into immortal beauty, is serene and confident. She shares his vision completely. Together they are shown in reliefs as equals, their hands raised in worship beneath the spreading rays of the Aten. It is said that when she prays, the Pharaoh listens. When she speaks, the Aten hears. Within months, palaces begin to gleam across the sand. The great temple of the Aten, centerpiece of the city, rises with courtyards large enough to hold thousands. Its walls are covered with inscriptions praising the sun's life-giving power. In every corner, scenes show the royal family, Pharaoh Nefertiti and their 6 daughters, bathed in sunlight, receiving the Ankh, the breath of life from the god himself. The art of Akhetaten reflects a new truth. No longer does the pharaoh appear stiff and eternal like the statues of the past. Now he is shown tenderly embracing his daughters, kissing his queen, laughing beneath the rays. The figures have long, graceful limbs, soft bellies, narrow faces. Critics in later centuries would call them strange, distorted, even unearthly. But to Akhenaten's artists, they are not deformities. They are the shapes of living divinity, fluid, human, illuminated. At night, the city glows with oil lamps and torches. The people sing hymns to the Aten words, written by the pharaoh himself. You rise in perfection on the horizon of heaven, O living Aten, the beginning of life. When you shine, all hearts live. When you set, they die and sleep. For the first time, Egypt's worship feels personal. The god is not hidden in shadow. He is present in every beam of light. And yet beneath the harmony, tension lingers. Many of those who followed the pharaoh here came unwillingly. Some still whisper the names of the old gods at night. The priests of Amun, stripped of power and wealth, seethe in silence. Their temples in Thebes stand empty, their offerings dwindling. They curse Akhetaten as a city of madness, a sunlit heresy rising from the sands. Even among the pharaoh's court, not all are loyal. Some officials murmur that the Aten is too distant, too abstract. The old gods, they argue, cared for Egypt's people. They had faces, stories, comforts. But the Aten has only light and fire. It gives life, yes, but it also burns. Still, the pharaoh's faith does not waver. He changes his name from Amenhotep Amun, is satisfied to Akhenaten, he who is useful to the Aten. The break is complete. With a single act, he severs his bond to the past and declares his total devotion to the new god. In the city's heart, he builds his own palace open to the sky. Its walls are painted with fields and birds, not gods or thrones. Here the royal family eats, in the sunlight walks barefoot through the gardens, and greets visiting dignitaries with warmth instead of ceremony. Foreign ambassadors leave bewildered. This is not the Egypt they remember. When the pharaoh speaks now, his words carry both power and poetry. The Aten needs no priests, he tells his court. No man may speak for the sun. The light touches all, king and farmer alike. The divine breathes in each of us. It is a message both beautiful and dangerous. For if all are equal beneath the sun, what becomes of Egypt's hierarchy? What becomes of the priests, the nobles, the centuries of divine order? The pharaoh believes he has freed Egypt from falsehood, but others believe he has broken the very spine of the world. Still, Akhetaten thrives. The streets fill with craftsmen, traders, and families who have left Thebes behind. Gardens bloom where once there was only sand. The royal children play in courtyards flooded with light. The city hums with life, and for a brief moment it seems as if the pharaoh's dream has come true. From the cliffs that encircle the valley, the Aten rises each morning between twin peaks exactly as Akhenaten saw in his vision. The city glows beneath it like a mirror of heaven. And as the pharaoh lifts his face to the light, he feels certain that his God has chosen him well. For the first time in history, a man has remade Egypt in the image of his own faith, and the gods themselves can only watch as a new world, a city of sunlight is born. The queen who shared the vision, the sun rises over Akhetaten, flooding the city with gold. Its rays slide across white limestone walls, through the open courtyards of temples, into the very heart of the royal palace. The air shimmers with heat and songbirds calling workers chanting hymns as they begin their day. And there, standing at the balcony beside the pharaoh, is the woman who has become his second soul, Queen Nefertiti. Her name means the beautiful one has come. But she is more than beauty. She is power clothed in grace and devotion, wrapped in serenity. Beneath the sun she stands tall, her jeweled crown catching the light, her eyes bright as the desert dawn. When Akhenaten speaks, she listens. When he worships, she lifts her hands beside him. Together they are not simply king and queen, they are the human face of the Aten. The artists of Akhetaten captured them as no royal couple before. Gone are the rigid poses of divinity. In carved reliefs and painted walls they are shown as a family, laughing, embracing, surrounded by their daughters. The Aten's rays reach down toward them, ending in tiny hands that cradle their faces, their children's heads. It is an intimacy never before seen in Egyptian art. The people whisper that the pharaoh and his queen are the living embodiment of divine balance, the male and female energies united beneath the sun's eternal gaze. Their partnership is not distant or ceremonial, but a live equal. In a world where women rarely ruled beside men, Nefertiti's presence is astonishing. She stands beside Akhenaten in all public ceremonies. When he dedicates the great temple, she offers incense with him. When he rides in his chariot through the city's streets, she rides beside him, her head held high. On official inscriptions, her name is carved as prominently as his. In some reliefs, she even strikes enemies of the Aten, a role once reserved only for kings. In Akhetaten, her power is not hidden. It radiates. The people adore her. They line the roads as her litter passes, throwing flowers, crying out blessings. To them, she is not just a queen, she is a mother, a mediator between the divine light and human hearts. Some even call her great royal wife of the Aten, as though the god himself has chosen her. But behind the sunlight and song life in the royal household is not without shadow. Nefertiti bears 6 daughters, Meritaten, Meketaten, Ankhesenpaten, and others whose names echo like delicate prayers. The royal family is close, affectionate, and joyful, yet the burden of rule presses heavily on them all. Each morning brings rituals, decrees, and endless ceremonies of worship. The pharaoh's vision consumes everything, even their private hours. In the quiet of night, when the city sleeps, Nefertiti often finds her husband awake, standing by the window, staring toward the horizon, where the Aten will rise again. "Do you never rest?" she asks softly, wrapping a linen shawl around her shoulders. He turns his eyes, glowing in the lamplight. "How can I?" he whispers. "The light never sleeps, even when it sets. It watches from the other side of the world. I feel it calling me." She steps beside him and lays her hand on his arm. "You have given Egypt to the Aten," she says. "Must you also give yourself?" He smiles faintly. What am I if not his instrument? We are his hands, his voice. Through us, he lives upon the earth. She studies him for a long moment, the thin, elongated face, the delicate mouth, the eyes that seem to look through the veil of reality itself. She loves him fiercely, but she also fears for him. The deeper his faith grows, the more distant he becomes from the world of men. Still she does not waver. If he is the dreamer, she is the anchor that keeps his dream from floating away. She manages the court, smooths disputes, comforts the anxious nobles who have followed them to the desert. Her presence steadies the fragile new kingdom. When foreign envoys arrive, emissaries from Nubia, Babylon, or the Hittites, they are startled to find the queen not silent and deferent, but radiant and articulate. She speaks with them in measured tones, her words graceful yet firm. More than once she diffuses tension where her husband's intensity might have caused offence. In Akhetaten's art, she is shown as nearly equal in stature to the pharaoh, sometimes even wearing the royal crown, sometimes alone, worshipping beneath the Aten's rays. Her image is everywhere, carved on palace walls, painted in shrines, moulded in clay by artisans who adore her. And yet the priests of Amun whisper that this partnership is unnatural, that no woman should share the throne, that the pharaoh has allowed passion to cloud divine order. In Thebes they call her the enchantress and the heretic's mirror. But in Akhetaten she is the sun's reflection, the embodiment of harmony. For a time the city thrives in peace. The Aten blesses them with steady floods and good harvests. The artisans' workshops hum with energy. The royal family walks through gardens heavy with flowers. It seems for a fleeting moment that Akhenaten's dream of light has become real. But the peace cannot last. Whispers from the old cities reach the palace. The priests of Amun are rebuilding their influence in secret. Trade with distant lands falters as foreign kings lose patience with Egypt's strange new faith. Letters arrive from allies pleading for troops, or gold pleas that Akhenaten, consumed by divine contemplation, too often ignores. Nefertiti sees it all. She feels the world narrowing around them. And yet she keeps her composure, smiling as the pharaoh speaks of eternal light. One evening, as they walk together through the palace gardens, she asks quietly, "Do you ever fear the Aten's fire may burn too brightly?" Akhenaten pauses. The setting sun paints his face in gold and shadow. The sun gives life, he says, but yes, it also burns. Perhaps the world must feel its heat before it understands its grace. She looks at him, her heart full of both love and dread, for she knows he will never turn back. His faith is a flame that can no longer be dimmed. In the years to come, her image will grow even stronger, her presence almost divine. And when the pharaoh's light begins to fade, she will carry it in his stead, keeping the vision alive. For now, as the last rays of the Aten fade into the horizon, the queen lifts her arms in prayer beside her king. Together they stand as one, the dreamer and the believer, framed against the endless glow of the sun. Their shadows stretch long across the sand, reaching toward eternity. The art of revolution. In Akhetaten, the sun is not just worshipped, it is everywhere. Its light pours through courtyards, glances off pale stone walls, fills every temple and home. Even art, once rigid and eternal, now glows with a new warmth. Under Akhenaten's command, Egypt's artists throw away the ancient rules of perfection and symmetry. The age of divine stillness is over. The age of movement, of life, of truth has begun. Inside the royal workshops, the sound of chisels and mallets rings out. Artists kneel before slabs of limestone, carving not gods with falcon heads or jackal faces, but the royal family living, breathing, laughing beneath the rays of the Aten. The pharaoh himself supervises the work, pacing barefoot through the dust. "No more of the old lies," he says softly, tracing a line upon the stone with his fingers. "No more statues that stare with eyes of stone and hearts of silence. Show them as they are human, warm, alive in the light." His sculptors, long bound by the unbending laws of sacred geometry, hesitate at first. Egyptian art has always been eternal, unchanging, perfect, as rigid as the order of the cosmos itself. To alter the divine image of the pharaoh is to alter the heavens, but Akhenaten insists. Truth, he tells them, is more divine than perfection. And so they begin. The pharaoh's likeness changes before their eyes. No longer the muscular, square-jawed god of kingship, he appears slender, elongated with a soft stomach and narrow chest. His face, too, transforms long and introspective, the eyes heavy-lidded, the lips full and curved. To some, the image seems strange, even unsettling, but to Akhenaten, it is honest, it is real. Do not hide the flaws, he says. The Aten hides nothing. We are as he made us, each different, each beautiful in his light. Soon the entire royal family becomes the subject of this new realism. Reliefs show Akhenaten cradling his daughters, kissing them, playing with them as any father might. Nefertiti stands beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The children tug at their parents' robes, laughing beneath the sun's rays. The Aten's hands reach down to bless them, each beam ending in the symbol of life, the Ankh. Never before in Egyptian history has such humanity been seen in royal art. It is as if the walls themselves have learned to breathe. The change spreads beyond the palace. Artisans begin to decorate tombs and houses with scenes of ordinary life: bakers kneading bread, women combing their hair, farmers harvesting grain beneath the sunlight. Gone are the towering gods of judgment and war. In their place stands the living world, alive and sacred. The people of Akhetaten find comfort in these images. For the first time, the divine feels near, not remote, not hidden in temples. The Aten's light touches every soul, every gesture, every breath. And yet not everyone sees beauty in this new art. Across the river, in the dark halls of Thebes, the priests of Amun shudder at the change. He mocks the gods, they whisper. He mocks himself. To portray the pharaoh as mortal, imperfect, it is sacrilege. They spread word that Akhenaten is deformed, cursed by the very light he worships. But in Akhetaten, the rumor only strengthens the pharaoh's resolve. He believes that the divine must be revealed, not concealed. The old gods lived behind curtains in secret sanctuaries, but the Aten shines openly upon the world. So must the pharaoh and his people. He orders that the temples of the Aten remain open to all, no gates, no darkness, no inner sanctums. There are no idols, only the pure disk of the sun carved above the altars. The prayers are sung aloud in open air. The priests, once mediators of mystery, now simply raise their hands and let the light fall upon their faces. Even the music changes. Harps and flutes, once used for solemn ritual, now play bright flowing melodies that echo through the courtyards. The hymns to the Aten are joyous, filled with gratitude instead of fear. You rise each morning in the east, filling all lands with your beauty. You are distant, yet your rays touch the world, giving life to all that lives. In these words, Akhenaten finds something more than worship. He finds philosophy. The Aten is not a god of vengeance or judgment, but of existence itself. The light that shines on all equally. For the artists of Akhetaten, this revelation becomes liberation. They begin to experiment boldly. Soft curves replace sharp angles, movement replaces stillness. Faces are expressive gestures, spontaneous. The pharaoh's city becomes a workshop of creation, unlike anything Egypt has ever seen. But with freedom comes risk. The old families, the nobles who once governed Egypt's provinces, view these changes with suspicion. They see not enlightenment, but decay, a pharaoh obsessed with beauty and dream, neglecting the hard realities of empire. While he paints the sun, one general mutters, "Our borders crumble in the dark." There is truth in that. The empire that once stretched across the Near East begins to strain. The vassal kings of Canaan and Syria send urgent letters pleading for aid against foreign threats. "My lord, my son," they write, "if your light does not shine upon us, we shall perish." But the Pharaoh's attention is elsewhere. He believes that the Aten's light, once embraced, will bring peace to all lands, that war is a shadow of the old world. In the workshops, however, the light still burns bright. One sculpture emerges that will transcend even the Pharaoh's reign, the bust of Nefertiti, carved by the royal artist Thutmose. Her face, serene and perfect, captures the very essence of Akhetaten's vision, divine, yet human, eternal, yet alive. Her gaze seems to follow the light wherever it falls. Centuries later, when all else of Akhetaten is dust, her face will endure a silent echo of the dream that once lived in the desert. But in the moment, the revolution of art is more than beauty. It is a mirror of belief. By reshaping how Egypt sees the world, Akhenaten reshapes what Egypt believes it is. The gods, the king, the people, all are joined in one continuous beam of light. And yet light casts shadows. Even as art blossoms, discontent grows. Outside the glowing city, famine begins to stir. Foreign lands rebel. The priests of Amun plot revenge. The world beyond Akhetaten does not share in its serenity. But for now, within the shining walls of the City of the Sun, there is only radiance, a fragile, impossible radiance like the golden hour before dusk. The Pharaoh stands with his queen before the temple, the Aten blazing above them, the air warm and sweet with the scent of lotus. He looks up and smiles. "This is truth," he says. "This is eternity." And for a heartbeat it feels as if it might be. The shadow of empire. The sun rises over Akhetaten as it always does, blazing, benevolent, eternal. The Pharaoh greets it from the terrace of his open palace, arms lifted to the sky. Around him, courtiers and priests of the Aten chant the morning hymns, their voices rising with the light. "You shine upon the lands. You bring life to all hearts. You make the flowers bloom, and the rivers flow. The city glows in gold and white, the air thick with incense." Yet beyond its radiant walls, the light of Egypt begins to dim. The empire that once stretched from the Euphrates to the Nubian deserts is faltering. In the north, the Hittites press against Egyptian allies. In Canaan, rebellious kings rise against their governors. Across the borders, messengers ride day and night bearing clay tablets inscribed with desperate words. Your servant falls to the ground 7 times. One letter pleads, without the Pharaoh's army, the king of Byblos will be destroyed. Another cries, "The enemy is upon us. The land of Amuru has turned against your majesty. Send chariots, send men, send light," but no soldiers come. The letters pile high in Akhetaten's archives, each bearing the same salutation. "To my lord, my son, my God, the breath of my life." The Pharaoh reads them, yes, but he does not act. To him war belongs to the age of shadows, the old world ruled by greed and fear. The Aten's light, he believes, will bring peace through faith, not force. If they see the truth, he says quietly, they will no longer need war. His advisers exchange worried glances. Generals beg for permission to march, but he waves them off gently, his face serene. The Aten does not conquer, he says. The Aten gives life. Yet life without defense begins to wither. Egypt's garrisons withdraw. Vassal states fall. The gold of tribute stops flowing down the Nile. In the markets of Akhetaten, prices rise, grain grows scarce. The merchants whisper that the Pharaoh has forgotten the world, and perhaps he has. For within his city, Akhenaten's vision still burns bright. He walks daily among his people, blessing them in the name of the Aten. Children sing as he passes. Artists carve new hymns into the walls. To those within the city, the outer world feels distant, a fading echo of an age they have left behind. But for the old nobles and military men who followed him reluctantly into the desert, that distance feels like abandonment, and they see the empire's edges crumble while their king offers prayers instead of armies. He dreams of heaven, one mutters bitterly, while earth slips away beneath his feet. Even Queen Nefertiti begins to sense the growing strain. Though her faith remains strong, she sees the anxiety in the eyes of the people, the quiet desperation of the court. She pleads with her husband to act to send aid, to restore Egypt's strength. But he shakes his head gently. Our power was born from fear, he tells her. Fear of death, fear of darkness, fear of gods who demanded sacrifice. The Aten frees us from fear. We must not return to it. She wants to believe him. She always has. But each day brings more letters, more cries from abroad, and fewer answers. The once ordered world of Egypt is unraveling thread by thread. Even the Nile, the eternal river, seems troubled. Its floods come late, the harvests weaken, the farmers kneel by the water's edge, murmuring prayers, some to the Aten, some still secretly to Osiris and Hapi. For when the crops fail, faith falters. In the dim courtyards of Thebes, the priests of Amun stir once more. Their temples, once emptied, begin to fill again with those who seek protection. See how the heretic's light blinds him, they tell the people. He has turned from the gods, and now Egypt suffers. The whispers grow into rumors, and the rumors into quiet defiance. Some villages refuse to send offerings to the Aten's temples. Some soldiers stationed far from Akhetaten swear oaths once more in the name of Amun. The hidden god is rising from shadow. In his palace, Akhenaten remains unshaken. His faith has become a fortress of the mind, unassailable. To his followers, his calm is divine. To his enemies, it is madness. He spends his hours composing new hymns, words that speak not to nations or armies, but to the soul. You are the one God, there is no other beside you. You create the world in your heart, and all men live by your will. He has become a poet-philosopher, a dreamer who rules not through decree, but through devotion. And while his words illuminate the spirit, his kingdom begins to darken. Even the art of Akhetaten, once filled with laughter and love, takes on a quieter tone. The scenes become solemn, introspective, the Pharaoh and his queen gazing heavenward, the rays of the Aten thinner, sharper. The joy of the early years has begun to fade. Foreign envoys arrive with desperate faces, but they are met not by armies, only by priests chanting beneath the sun. One emissary from Syria departs in fury, crying, "Your Aten gives light, but no help. His rays cannot stop arrows." Still the Pharaoh smiles. The Aten's light shines upon all, he replies, even those who do not yet understand. But the strain cannot be hidden forever. Hunger creeps into the city. Workers grumble that their rations shrink. The heat grows oppressive. Some whisper that the Aten, once so generous, has turned his face away. In the palace, Nefertiti continues to stand beside her husband, her strength unbroken. But in her heart she wonders whether faith alone can hold a kingdom together. Sometimes She watches the horizon in silence, her eyes filled with both devotion and doubt. And the Pharaoh, the man who once dreamed of uniting the world in light, begins to grow thin, pale, withdrawn. He spends long hours in meditation, his words drifting into abstraction. His letters to governors and generals become rare, his attention fixed entirely on matters of spirit. It is as if the sun he worships has drawn him too near, and now he burns in its brilliance. Still every morning he stands before the great temple of the Aten, lifting his arms to the sky as the people gather around him. His voice rings out clear and unwavering, the Aten rises and all darkness flees. Let no man fear the shadow, for it cannot live in the light. But even as he speaks, the shadow he denies grows longer, stretching from the borders of Egypt to the very walls of Akhetaten itself. The empire that once feared no rival is crumbling in silence. And the Pharaoh, blinded by his vision of eternal day, cannot see the darkness gathering behind him. The sun still shines, but its warmth has turned to fire. The wrath of the old gods, the heat over Akhetaten, grows fierce, a relentless blaze that sears the land. The fields beyond the city lie cracked and pale, the Nile's waters lower than memory can recall. Dust drifts across the courtyards of the great temple, settling on the white altars where flowers once bloomed. The sun still rises, but its warmth feels different now, heavier, harsher, as though the Aten's radiance has turned to flame. And the people begin to murmur. In the marketplaces, women whisper over baskets of grain that costs twice what it did last season. Farmers kneel at the riverbank, begging the waters to rise. Some bow to the Aten with trembling hands, others, glancing over their shoulders, press their lips to the old amulets they never dared discard, the eye of Horus, the feather of Ma'at, the crook of Osiris. They murmur the forbidden names in the shadows, afraid yet desperate. In the heart of the city, the Pharaoh remains steadfast. Akhenaten greets each dawn, as always, his thin arms lifted toward the burning sky. But those who watch him closely see that his face has changed. The soft serenity of earlier years is gone. In its place is something taut, almost feverish. His eyes are deep-set and bright, his cheeks hollow. He eats little, sleeps less. The divine light that once inspired him now consumes him. He prays for hours in the open air, unshielded from the sun's blaze. Even the priests, his most loyal followers, begin to whisper that their god tests them with fire. The Aten burns away the unworthy, they say, though their voices quaver. Then the sickness comes. It begins in the outer districts, a fever that spreads swiftly from worker to worker. The healers can do little. Their herbs and charms fail. The afflicted lie gasping in the dust, their bodies thin, their lips cracked by heat. Within weeks the illness reaches the city's heart. Even the palace is not spared. The courtyards fall silent. The laughter of children fades. From the royal quarters comes the sound of weeping. One of the Pharaoh's daughters, Akhetaten, beloved and bright, grows weak, her skin pale, her breath shallow. The queen holds her in trembling arms as the priests chant to the Aten, pleading for mercy. But the sunlight pouring through the windows feels merciless, indifferent. And when the girl's small body finally lies still, even Akhenaten's voice falters. The city mourns, but the Pharaoh's grief turns inward, twisting into deeper devotion. The Aten has taken her into the light, he tells the people. She lives now in his radiance, yet his words, once so powerful, no longer comfort them. They see not transcendence, but loss. Rumors begin to creep back from Thebes. The priests of Amun, driven underground for years, proclaim that the gods of Egypt are avenging themselves upon the heretic. See how the sun burns his own followers, they say. See how his children perish in the heat. Some claim that the Nile's failure is Amun's curse. Others whisper that Osiris has turned his face from the land of the living. And slowly, fear begins to outweigh faith. Families flee Akhetaten by night, slipping away toward the older cities. Some leave offerings at the gates, bread, water, flowers, begging the Aten's forgiveness. But in their hearts they know where they go back to the shadowed temples, back to the gods who have ruled Egypt since before memory. Inside the palace, the queen tries to keep the world from unraveling. Nefertiti moves among her people, feeding the hungry, comforting the sick. She reminds them that faith must endure even in hardship. Her composure is unbroken, her beauty undimmed, yet behind her calm eyes, sorrow grows like a secret wound. The Pharaoh spends long hours alone. The courtiers no longer see him walking among the people or laughing with his daughters. Instead, he writes new hymns, strange, haunting verses that speak of unity through suffering, of light purified through loss. He speaks now of the Aten not as a gentle giver of life, but as an eternal flame that burns away imperfection. To his followers, this sounds like revelation. To others, it sounds like despair. Then one evening, as the sun sinks blood-red behind the cliffs, a wind sweeps through the city. The sky darkens suddenly. Clouds, rare ominous, gather over Akhetaten. Thunder rolls low and distant. For a moment, even the most faithful fall silent, staring upward in fear. Rain, the first in years, begins to fall, but instead of relief, it brings terror. The downpour floods the dusty streets, washing away offerings, soaking the open altars. The people cry out that the gods of old have returned in wrath. The Aten's temple stands exposed beneath the storm, its fires extinguished, its priests kneeling helplessly in the mud. To them, it is an omen. The Pharaoh stands on his balcony, drenched in rain, staring into the turbulent sky. Lightning flashes, illuminating his gaunt figure. "Do you not see?" he cries. Even the storm serves the Aten. His light hides behind the clouds, but it never dies. His voice is hoarse, his expression wild. To those watching, the moment is both terrifying and tragic. They see not a god-king, but a man clinging to belief as the world around him unravels. In the days that follow, the sickness worsens. Food grows scarce. The once glorious streets of Akhetaten fill with silence. The murals of the sunlit royal family, painted on every wall, begin to crack and fade. And across Egypt, the name of Amun is spoken more boldly. His priests return to their temples. Offerings flow once more into the old shrines. The rebellion of the gods is complete. Akhenaten does not know or refuses to see that his revolution has begun to crumble. He still rises each morning to greet the sun, though few now stand beside him. His priests bow, but their eyes are weary. His queen prays, but her heart is heavy with grief. The city he built as a hymn to eternity has become a tomb of dreams. And still the Pharaoh whispers to the sky, "The Aten is eternal, the Aten is all." The sun answers with silence. Its rays fall faint and red upon the sand, as if mourning what once was bright. Akhetaten, the city of light, stands surrounded by shadow. The gods of Egypt, once dethroned, have returned in spirit, and the man who sought to banish them now stands alone in the glare of a sun that no longer warms. The wrath of the old gods has fallen, and their vengeance needs no thunderbolt, only time. The final days of the heretic Pharaoh. The sun still rises over Akhetaten, but it rises over silence. The streets that once echoed with music and prayer now lie empty. The market stalls are closed, their awnings tattered by the wind. The gardens have withered, the fountains have run dry. What was once the city of light now feels like a hollow shell, gleaming only with memory. At the center of it all, the palace stands unchanged in form, but empty in spirit. The laughter of the royal children is gone. The courtiers whisper less each day, for there is little left to say. The people who remain do so out of loyalty or fear. Most of Egypt has already turned away. The pharaoh Akhenaten walks through his open courtyards as he always has, the rays of the Aten striking his pale skin. But the warmth he once felt now burns like judgment. He moves slowly, his figure frail, his robes hanging loosely from his shoulders. His eyes, still bright, still filled with that same unreachable light, seem to stare beyond the world itself. He does not speak much anymore. When he does, it is to the air, to the sky, to the god who no longer seems to answer. The Aten is eternal, he murmurs. The Aten does not abandon, but the Aten's silence is unbroken. In the royal chambers, Nefertiti tends to him. Her beauty has not faded, though grief has hollowed her face. The years have worn her heart thin. She moves with quiet strength, guiding the remaining priests, feeding the hungry with what little remains. If the pharaoh's faith is the sun, hers is the flame that refuses to die in the dark. Sometimes she watches him from a distance, the man who once filled Egypt with light, now standing alone beneath the same sun that once blessed him. She remembers his laughter, his visions, his hope. And she wonders, as she never dared to before, whether the Aten has truly spoken through him, or whether it was only ever his own longing that she followed. Still she does not leave him. Even as the court crumbles, she stands by his side. Beyond the palace, the desert creeps closer. The people of Akhetaten abandon their homes by night, slipping into the dunes, carrying what little they can. Many head back to Thebes, where the temples of Amun glow once again with life and offering. The old gods, they say, have returned to Egypt, and perhaps they have. Reports reach the palace that the name of Amun is being restored to the monuments, that the priests walk openly in their white robes, that hymns to Osiris and Isis are once again sung at funerals. The rebellion of the Aten is ending, not in fire but in forgetting. When the last royal courier brings this news, Akhenaten only smiles faintly. Then let them sing, he says. Even in their darkness the light will touch them. They cannot escape it. But in his eyes there is sorrow. For he knows that when men stop speaking the name of a god, that god begins to die. The fever that swept through the city months before still lingers, claiming more each week. The pharaoh's own health fades with it. His body weakens, his hands tremble, but his devotion only deepens. He spends his days dictating prayers and hymns, words meant to preserve the Aten's truth after he is gone. The scribes, weary and gaunt, struggle to keep pace as he whispers, "You live forever in the sky, but I live in you. Though I die, your light remains. Though my name is forgotten, you rise again." His voice cracks on the last word. At night he dreams of the early years, the first sunrise over Akhetaten, the laughter of his daughters, the joy of creation. He dreams of a city that never fell to shadow. And when he wakes, he looks out at the horizon where the Aten climbs the cliffs and whispers, Was it all only a dream? Then Nefertiti tries to comfort him. She kneels beside his bed, holding his thin hands in hers. You gave Egypt something no other pharaoh ever did, she tells him. You taught them that the divine is not fear, but light. Even if they forget your name, that truth will remain. But he shakes his head. The light is eternal, he says softly, but men's hearts are clouds. They cover it again and again. One evening, as the sun sinks low, the pharaoh walks for the last time through the great temple of the Aten. The once bright walls are cracked and fading, the courtyards half buried in sand. Only a handful of priests follow him now. He pauses at the altar, where once he stood before thousands, and lays his hands upon the warm stone. He whispers a final prayer, O living Aten light of all lands. I have served you as best I could. Forgive me if I failed your design. Let me return to you as your child made of light, dissolved into your eternity. When he turns to leave, he does not look back. In the following days, his strength fades completely. The physicians can do nothing. The palace grows quiet except for the sound of the wind. One morning, as the dawn breaks over the cliffs, Akhenaten asks to be carried to the balcony one last time. The servants lift him gently, and there he sits wrapped in white linen, his face turned to the east. The horizon glows pink and gold. His breath comes shallow, but his eyes are bright with peace. He whispers to Nefertiti, Look, the Aten rises. She nods, tears glinting in her eyes. Yes, my king, it rises for you. The sun crests the cliffs, its rays fall across his face. He smiles faintly, and in that moment his breathing stops. The Pharaoh of light has returned to his god. The city mourns, though softly. No great funerals are held, no grand monuments built. His tomb carved into the cliffs east of Akhetaten is left unfinished. The priests sing hymns to the Aten one last time, their voices thin and trembling in the empty air. And when the sun sets that evening, the city feels hollow as if its soul has gone with him. Nefertiti stands alone at the balcony, the sky ablaze with crimson. The dream they built together of light, of unity, of eternal day has ended. Yet as she gazes at the horizon, she whispers, You are still there, my love. The sun rises as it always will. The wind moves through the silent streets, carrying with it the faint echo of the Pharaoh's hymns. The world goes on, and the Aten shines as before, bright, eternal, indifferent. The heretic king is gone, but his light still lingers on the stone. The return of the old order. The sun still rises over Akhetaten, but now it does so upon a city of ghosts. The courtyards are empty. The voices of workers and musicians are gone. The great temple's open altars are covered with sand. In the royal palace, the murals of the pharaoh and his queen, once painted in bright ochre and gold, are fading, their edges chipped away by time and wind. The city built for eternity is already dissolving into dust. Pharaoh Akhenaten is gone, his body sealed within his unfinished tomb in the eastern cliffs. Those who remain in the city go about their duties with hollow eyes. The priests of the Aten still light the morning fires, still raise their hands to the sky, but their voices no longer carry conviction. They chant out of habit, not hope. The Queen Nefertiti lingers for a time. She is no longer the radiant figure who once stood beside her husband before the blazing sun. Grief has made her silent, her face a pale shadow of the woman who once commanded reverence. She tends to her surviving daughters, guiding them through the rituals of mourning. But each day she sees more families leave Akhetaten under cover of night, returning to Thebes, to Memphis, to the old gods they had abandoned. The dream of Aten's city cannot outlive its dreamer. And far from Akhetaten in the temples of Thebes, something ancient awakens once more. The priests of Amun, those whom Akhenaten silenced, exiled or stripped of power, emerge from the shadows. The city that once trembled beneath the heretic's decrees now resounds again with the hymns of the hidden god. The statues that had been defaced are restored. The chiseled-out names of Amun are recarved into the stone. Incense burns again in Karnak's vast halls. The people return to the comfort of the old ways, bowing before gods they can see, hear, and touch. Whispers fill the markets. The gods have punished the heretic. Amun has reclaimed Egypt. From the north and the south, scribes carry messages between cities. Governors who once wrote to Akhenaten as my son now address the priests of Amun as my masters. Soldiers who once swore loyalty to the Aten renew their oaths before the old gods. Even within Akhetaten, the Aten's light begins to dim. The royal treasury stands empty, its stores drained by years of neglect and isolation. The granaries yield little. The nobles who once praised Akhenaten's divine vision now quietly renounce it, eager to secure their place in whatever order follows. Then comes a new king. He is a child no more than 10 years old, one of Akhenaten's sons, born into the house of the sun, but destined to inherit a world of shadows. His name is Tutankhaten, living image of the Aten. For a short time, the priests of Aten proclaim him the continuation of his father's divine mission, but others, older, wiser, and more powerful, see an opportunity. The generals, the court officials, the priests who have survived every revolution gather around the boy and his young wife, one of Nefertiti's daughters. They whisper of Egypt's suffering, of famine, of rebellion in the north, of temples left empty. They speak gently, persuasively. Your father's heart was pure, but his ways were mistaken. The Aten was one face of the divine, but not the only one. Egypt's balance Mahat must be restored, and so the boy king is guided toward a new decree, a reversal of everything his father built. In the 3rd year of his reign, the royal court departs Akhetaten. The city is left behind, its streets silent beneath the desert wind. The royal family moves back to Thebes, the ancient city of gods and kings. There, in a ceremony attended by priests and generals, the boy's name is changed. Tutankhaten becomes Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. It is an act of both restoration and erasure. The temples of the Aten are closed. Their altars are dismantled, their stones carried away to build new shrines for the old gods. The statues of Akhenaten are toppled, their faces shattered. His name is carved out of every monument, his cartouches erased from every wall. Official records call him not Pharaoh, but enemy, the heretic of Akhetaten. In the great halls of Karnak, the priests offer sacrifices once more to Amun, Osiris, and Isis. The hymns to the Aten are forgotten. Only the whisper of wind through the temple gates carries an echo of the light that once filled Egypt. As for Akhetaten, it does not fall in battle nor burn in rebellion, it simply fades. The sand returns, swallowing the avenues, the gardens, the palace courtyards. The houses crumble. The desert takes back what was always hers. Travelers who pass by in later years speak of a city of ghosts where the statues stand half-buried, staring forever toward the sun. Nefertiti's fate is uncertain. Some say she ruled briefly after Akhenaten's death, keeping his vision alive until her strength failed. Others say she vanished into the desert, her tomb lost, like the dream she once shared. A few believe she lived long enough to see the return of Amun's priests, and the renaming of her stepson, her husband's legacy, undone before her eyes. Whatever the truth, her image endures in the masterpiece her artists left behind, the sculpted bust serene and timeless, her eyes gazing toward eternity. In that face, the beauty of Akhetaten still lives, the brief flame that tried to outshine the world. Back in Thebes, life resumes its ancient rhythm. Pharaoh Tutankhamun reigns under the guidance of his elders. The festivals return, the gods are praised, and Egypt breathes again in the comfort of tradition. And yet, something has changed. Though the name of Akhenaten is cursed, though his city lies abandoned, the idea he birthed cannot be erased so easily. In secret, a few scribes still copy his hymns, the words he wrote to the Aten. You are the one God shining in truth, creator of all nations. Their tongues differ, but you are the same to all. They whisper these lines quietly, half in fear, half in wonder. For even in a world ruled once more by many gods, the memory of one light, one truth, lingers like a faint glow beneath the surface of belief. The priests of Amun have reclaimed their temples. The pharaohs to come will honor them for centuries. But beneath the stone, beneath the rituals, something invisible remains, the echo of a single sun that once burned too brightly for its time. The old order has returned triumphant, yet fragile, for the world has glimpsed what lies beyond shadow. And though the name of Akhenaten is ground to dust, his vision survives not in temples or power, but in the hearts of those who still lift their eyes to the horizon at dawn and see for a fleeting moment one radiant sun shining upon all. Legacy of the Sun King. The centuries pass and the desert buries what memory forgets. Wind and sand sweep through the valley, once called Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. The city that was to last for eternity lies silent beneath the shifting dunes, its palaces broken, its altars choked with dust. Only the cliffs remember, they stand unmoved as they did on the day the Pharaoh looked upon them and saw his god rise between their peaks. For a long time, no one speaks his name. The scribes of later dynasties omit him from the lists of kings. The priests of Amun, triumphant and powerful, once more call him the enemy, the mad one, the heretic of Thebes. To utter his name is to risk defilement. His statues are shattered, his likeness erased from every wall. Even his tomb, half finished and forgotten, is left to crumble. And yet, time has its own memory. Long after Akhetaten has vanished, fragments of hymns survive, verses copied by scribes who could not bring themselves to destroy them. Scholars in later ages will read these words, and though they bear no mention of Amun or Osiris, they will feel their strange beauty. When you rise, all hearts live. When you set, they die. You are the breath of life for all creation. They will wonder about the man who wrote them, the Pharaoh who spoke not of vengeance or judgment, but of light and love. The Egypt that follows Akhenaten returns to its many gods and its ancient certainties. Temples rise again to Amun, Ptah, and Isis. The world regains its balance, or so it seems, but beneath the rituals a quiet change has taken root. For in the shadow of his heresy, Egypt has glimpsed something new, the idea that the divine might be one invisible universal. Centuries later, philosophers in distant lands will ask similar questions. Prophets will speak of a single creator, unseen yet present in all things. Scholars will trace those ideas backward through time to Moses, to the ancient Near East, and some will pause, looking even further still, to that strange, brilliant Pharaoh who called the sun the face of the eternal. Perhaps it is coincidence, perhaps not. The story of Akhenaten does not live in temples or monuments. It lives in echoes, in the thought that somewhere in the dawn of civilization, one man dared to see the divine not in idols, but in light itself. For the Egyptians who came after him, his reign was a warning. His name became a whisper, a cautionary tale told in the language of fear. Do not follow false gods, they would say. Do not forget Mayat, the balance of the world. Yet the paradox endures. They erased him to preserve their order, but by erasing him, they gave his story immortality. In the sands of Middle Egypt, centuries of silence pass. Shepherds cross the ruins, unaware that beneath their feet lie the remnants of a forgotten empire of sunlight. Travelers see strange shapes half buried in the dunes, columns, statues, fragments of alabaster, and wonder who built them. The desert, indifferent and eternal, keeps its secret. It will not be until 33 centuries later that the silence is broken. In the late 19th century, archaeologists arrive with their maps, their brushes, their notebooks. They dig through the limestone dust, uncovering walls painted with scenes of a royal family unlike any other. A pharaoh and his queen sit beneath the sun's rays, their faces soft and human, their children playing at their feet. There are no other gods, no priests, no wars, only warmth and light. The scholars stand in awe. They read the inscriptions Akhenaten, the living spirit of the Aten. At first they call him mad, a fanatic who tried to destroy Egypt's traditions. But as they uncover more, the hymns, the art, the tenderness carved in stone, the tone begins to change. The world realizes it is not looking at the work of a tyrant, but of a visionary centuries ahead of his time. They find the shattered bust of Nefertiti, her gaze serene, timeless. Her face becomes the symbol of an age, rediscovered an age when art broke free, when a king and queen stood together before the sun and saw themselves reflected in its light. Slowly the world begins to understand what Egypt once could not, that Akhenaten's revolution was not merely against gods or priests, but against fear itself. He sought to free the divine from shadow, to give the people not terror, but radiance. His failure was not in his vision, but in the world's unreadiness to receive it. Even now, historians debate who he truly was, prophet, philosopher, idealist, or dreamer undone by his own brilliance. Perhaps he was all of these, perhaps none. But as long as the sun rises each day, his truth endures that light belongs to everyone, and that within that light all life is one. In museums across the world, fragments of Akhetaten now rest behind glass-carved faces of the royal family, slabs of hymns written in elegant hieroglyphs, jewelry once kissed by the desert sun. Visitors pause before them, sensing something strangely familiar, something almost modern. They read the words carved by his hand, "You are in my heart, none knows you but I. You make the Nile in the underworld, you bring life to all distant lands." And for a moment the centuries collapse. They can almost see him, the pharaoh, standing barefoot on the palace terrace, eyes closed, arms raised toward the blazing horizon. Around him the city glitters like a sea of gold. His people sing, his queen smiles beside him, and the light pours over them all, unbroken, eternal. The moment passes, but its warmth lingers, a whisper from a world that once dared to believe that peace could be found not in darkness, but in the sun. Today, when dawn breaks over the Nile, the light touches the same cliffs that once cradled his dream. The ruins of Akhetaten still lie there, hidden beneath the sand, but the horizon remains the eternal line where earth and sky meet, where light first kisses the world awake. And somewhere within that glow the spirit of Akhenaten endures, the heretic, the dreamer, the poet-king who sought to bring heaven to earth. For the sun that burned him still shines upon all, and in that light his story never truly ends.